Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's panel session. Thank you for joining. Very excited to have you all here and join with our panel of service executives that we have lined up for today. Before we begin, if you have any questions throughout the panel, you can direct them to the Q&A and chat function below and type them in, and we'll be answering them in real time for you. Today's panel session is getting data from legacy products and systems to effectively crunch the numbers for predictive service. A topic we hear a lot about recently with all of the changes in the industry here at WBR, and very happy to jump in to the discussion with our panelists here. So before we begin with some questions, we'll have our panelists introduce themselves, and how about we start with Billy, since you're on top of my screen right next to me.
All right, thank you, Jonathan, and hello, everyone. Billy Wang, I'm with Envision Digital, and I am the Global Head of Services. Envision Digital is a AIoT company, and we help connect a lot of different assets and devices and help orchestrate sort of the data transmission and data flow amongst the many devices and help our customers make sense of all the information. So glad to be here, and looking forward to this topic for this panel.
Thanks, Billy. Vikram?
Hello, everyone. My name is Vikram Shivashankar. I'm the VP of Transformation Services and Customer Success at Zinier Inc. Now, Zinier Inc., we work in the field service management area. We are one of the first companies to bring a platform-based approach to field services, a well-established industry in the marketplace, through a combination of a low-code as well as a platform AI-based approach. Happy to be here and a pleasure to be on the panel. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikram. Haroon?
Yeah, my name is Haroon Abu. I'm the Vice President of Digital Data and Analytics here at Bell & Howell. Bell & Howell is a technology-enabled services-first company with nearly 1,000 field service engineers around the clock, customer service center, and remote monitoring capabilities. We service industrial equipment from mail automation to robotics with large install base in North America, spanning multiple OEMs. We also deliver industrial automation equipment, click and collect equipment for retail and pharmacy space, as well as production mail. Glad to be part of this team, and looking forward to the lively conversation.
Thanks, Haroon. And last but not least, Jatin.
Hey folks, hello everybody. This is Jatin Thakur, and I represent the life sciences and medical devices industry here on this panel. So in my role, I'm in charge of global service and sales support for CareStream. We are world leaders in health imaging solutions, and our service and support team does frontline support for all of our equipment worldwide. So glad to be on this panel and looking forward to the discussion.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. As you guys can see, we have a nice cross section of industries and expertise, as well as years and years of expertise and service for us to go through and chat with here. So looking forward to it. So why don't we jump right in? Our first question is, where do you start in your journey in sorting through the data and looking at systems? And what are the various kind of milestones or key steps you need to make along the way when beginning? So first question, why don't we offer that up to Billy?
All right, yeah, thanks, Jonathan. When you talk about first steps, kind of the entry point for our company is sort of, we are working with a lot of smart cities and smart buildings, and then also other customers who have sort of smart solutions that they're trying to capture all the IoT data and information from. And across that, we will start to run into different devices and specific devices or solutions that we need to capture data from. And some of these devices inherently have the information that you're able to connect with, and then some devices are not, right? And some devices are a little bit more legacy in their architecture and sort of IoT capability or connectivity capabilities. And this is where, as we run into these things, we start to look at how do we offer up a solution to allow our customers to be able to connect and gather information from these devices. But through that process, we find that not only are we trying to collect information from these devices as part of a greater solution, but then intrinsically within that product set itself, there's a lot of value in the information that we're collecting and the information that we can bring back to the OEM and the service provider on how to manage their warranties better, how to do predictive services, and how to sort of trend out and ensure that the uptime and availability is there, right? So those are things where as we start to connect and see a more connected world, we're finding that that connected world also translates very well back to the field service provider at the OEM level, and it offers them sort of that data set where they're able to sort of open up the playbook around field services and how do you do a connected service offer, how do you do, enhance your service maintenance offers and all these other things. So that's kind of the entry point and what we're seeing, and that's sort of the way on which Envision Digital is approaching the space.
Gotcha. Yes. Vikram, thoughts on that?
Sure. No, from our perspective, since we serve multiple industries with a field service solution, we actually start with a use case. I mean, and as you all know, there are many use cases that people want to solve. So when we look at what we really focus on is when we do the soup to nuts, back office to field service orchestration on our platform, we collect a lot of data, which could be technician related data, back office related productivity data. And the question that we ask to the customer is what problem you want to solve first, right? And for telecom, it could be capital project reduction time, or for some of our spare parts company, it's about inventory optimization. The prompts are varied. So what we've had success in the past is really focusing on one problem and then asking the next question, do you have data? Now, in field service, and I'm happy to hear other panelists provide the perspective, compared to other like smart meters or other areas, you don't get that much data. So it's also another filter for us is what kind of data and what is the volume of data that you get, right? Is a particular service order giving us the volumes that deliver us the insights. And the third part is, I think, data quality. From a gate perspective, for us, it is, are we getting the right kind of data, and is the data organized correctly for us to make any intelligent assumptions? And actually go to the next stage of trying to build any predictive model. So as an example, for an auto parts company, they had a $1 million inventory management problem, a significant problem. And as we're working with them in terms of figuring out where the issue is, we realized that they have data spread across in 16 different legacy systems. So how do we make sense of that data, and how do we pull that data in to make to make sense of the inventory problem is an area that we're talking about. So yeah, again, start with the use case in summary, and really come to the point whether do we have data fidelity and data quality that will help with the tangible results. So that's our approach.
Absolutely. Thanks, Vikram. And Harun, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo what Vikram and Billy said. Actually, Billy on the real-time perspective, and Vikram on starting with the goal first, right? So in any analytics journey, the most important thing is to understand what your goal is. What is that you're trying to do with data? Once you understand that goal, then assess if the data you have is sufficient to achieve your goal. If not, go back to the drawing board, assess your data needs, and then put mechanism in place to collect, cleanse, refine, model, and then visualize that data to inform or to drive a business solution or to solution to your business problem. For us at Bell & Howell, our goal, just like what Billy said, was to increase the efficiency of our field service organization, and to do that with real-time data and with technology. So we started by take more things by assessing our data. What data do we have? Obviously, most of the data that we had on the legacy side was outdated, right? So we had to go and collect the data. We had to instrument with IoT those legacy machines so that we can be effective with real-time data, because most of the times the data that we had was obsolete by the time we get to it. So by connecting the machines, we are creating data pipeline, whether it is service data, engineering spec data, product performance data, and bringing it all together so we can build a more insightful system that can give real-time insights to our field service technicians, thereby improving our efficiency of the field service.
Gotcha. Thanks, Arun. And last but not least, Jatin.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting. I'm going to piggyback on a couple of these perspectives. One of the things when you go down these major journeys is kind of determining what are you going to get out of it, right? And one of the, I'll say, initial use cases is obviously driven around productivity and efficiencies. That's where we started with. It was relatively easy for us to build a business case around building a couple of these capabilities on getting service productivity for our field workforce. So being able to tap into alerts and different triggers coming in from the devices, combined with everything else we had from our CRM systems, was the first step. How do I get more access to these alerts and be able to predict different capabilities so that we can be a little bit more proactive in how we offer service to our customers? So one of our initial use cases was trying to optimize and drive some productivity in field service organizations. And that led to the initial investments and the business cases for building some of our infrastructure.
Gotcha. So Jatin, for this next question, we'll start in reverse. We'll give this one to you. And I think this is relevant for a lot of the people in attendance. If you're not from a large enterprise company or conglomerate or whatever the case may be, this next question is kind of geared for those folks. So how can you start small and compete with enterprise companies when it comes to IoT or other technologies? And how can you achieve success without a huge IT budget?
Of course. And I don't think, is there any such thing anymore as a huge IT budget? I think those days are gone now.
Yeah.
But no, I think a couple of things I would say, and some parallels to the journey that we have had. One is start with your end goal in mind. What is the outcome you're looking to achieve? Whether it be service productivity or improve the workflow utilization of your customers' outcomes or drive better optimization in some of their business processes. Once you have an impact of what are you looking to do from an end perspective, I think there's two major things. One is what I call the infrastructure, the pipeline, all of the platforms to make this happen. Luckily, if you rewind back 15 years, there was a thing where many companies had to kind of reinvent the wheel and try to build some of these. Today, a lot of you have options that if you're starting small, there are many, I'll say services in a box, but they provide the infrastructure, the pipeline, the mechanisms. A lot of it is cloud-based. So you don't really have to invest in a lot of infrastructure, the pipelining. And, we have a couple of people here on the call. There are some companies that can help you get that. Where we need to focus on as a business is what I call the crown jewels. What data, what triggers, what signals are your devices giving out? Because even if you have the most efficient real-time pipeline connected to your devices, if the devices aren't emitting enough intelligent data, intelligent signals, there's not much you're going to be able to do about it. And those are sometimes longer journeys, as in how do you go back in time, work with your R&D organization, your business organization, as to what are the right triggers we want to build in our devices. And that's where is obviously, I'll say, secret sauce for most of our companies here. But we're fortunate that now and going further, there are a lot of opportunities on the infrastructure side where you could experiment with relatively low cost and start doing some things. You may have to make a couple hops to determine the right infrastructure for your needs. But the good news is that you don't have to go big bang.
Great, thanks. Harun.
No, I agree. Starting small is important because it allows us to move faster and be successful. From the cultural standpoint, because you're right that there's a lot of cloud services, you can stand up a system pretty fast. But from the culture perspective, in order to build that analytics-driven culture, especially in a company that has been around for hundreds of years, it is to look for that small successes and communicate and emphasize those successes. The other thing is to avoid having a cycle of siloed pilots, right? I would not experiment. I would go right into production. Start small, but do a real production project, even starting small. skip the pilots and go right into production with a small use case, show the results, get leadership commitment, and move on to the next low-hanging fruit, right? So as the subscription-based, usage-based technologies and platforms allows us to get best-in-class tools, just like those big major companies do, that allows us to scale as we grow as well. So yeah, we can compete with big companies with huge IT budgets by actually getting to actually doing certain low-hanging fruit type of projects, and then productionalizing it and getting some success and emphasizing that success and celebrating them.
Yeah, we hear a lot about this sort of getting out of pilot purgatory in a lot of the connected topics we have, and making small steps to move forward quickly. Vikram.
Sure. No, it's very fascinating conversation to hear, again, Jatin and Haroon's perspective from, again, an end user. So I agree with that. I think from a Zinier perspective, this is very fascinating. And I think Jatin also referred to that. There are platforms that are bringing in some of these capabilities at a lower cost. I think what we did at Zinier, and just being a legacy of a company which is, we've been in the FSM for like around 4 years, right? There've been a lot of companies in the FSM space, technology companies. So what we did was we took a platform-based approach where we integrated the transaction, the field service management aspect natively with AI through a platform. So we built that platform to actually merge the two. And that was born out of, again, experiences where AI from a division perspective was one aspect, and then there was the services, the execution arm was one. And to others' point, bringing those two was not very easy. So what we said is, if you look at it from a platform perspective, can we build AI or easily set up and instantiate AI models for our customers? Number one, right? Through a pilot and through other ways. But not only that, can we actually provide the plumbing to connect the AI or the business AI analytics into your field service? So just as an example, we do what we call the technician efficiency. So we actually measure technician efficiency kind of in real time, and they're doing different tasks, right? And the plumbing is already built in. You can validate that, and it feeds in a closed feedback loop. It feeds back to the transaction business side of the business. So and again, I go Jatin's point and Haroon's point that while there's a lot of technologies, I think it's important that we get the business stakeholders aligned. And also the cost, I've noticed, is a lot to do with what technologies you want to invest in. Do you go with a platform-based approach that we bring in, or do you go with a disparate set of technologies and processes that help address the costs? I think, I don't want to be biased, but I think the platform-based approach is giving opportunity for, again, small and midstream enterprises to innovate, experiment, and see if it is working much faster. So yeah, thank you.
That seems to be the key. Innovate fast, small chunks, sort of minimize some of that risk. And Billy, you want to shed some insights here too?
Yeah, so I guess I get the back cleanup on this topic. It's kind of nice to all my esteemed colleagues here have already kind of laid the foundation, and I agree with all of them. Again, I think you've heard a couple themes throughout the answers, right, on this topic. It's around, others have a platform as a service, utilize the services that are available to you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? So, and then the value that many of these small, mid-sized OEMs bring is not in, hey, I can outperform, or I can outdo a cloud application, or I can outdo a connectivity application, or I can out AI someone, right? Those are things that other companies already have developed as a platform, such as Envision and others, right? So we can bring that to you, but where the OEMs add value is they know their domain expertise, they know the product expertise, and they know the service expertise very well. And then it's how do you take advantage of all these technologies that you can enable yourselves to be able to compete with the larger competitors, or the more enterprise competitors that you see in your market space, and how can you offer up some sort of the similar solution around, hey, not only am I selling you a product, but I'm selling you all of I'm processing the information, using the information to generate a better service experience for you. And then those are all the things that, that I find that, in talking with sort of the smaller companies, mid-sized companies that are embarking on this, it's like, wow, if I want to do it myself, I've got to spend a lot of money. But now knowing that there's other companies out there that can help you along that journey and help enable you to do that, that's the true value that we're able to provide. So that when you see like some of these smaller companies that where we are providing them a digital twin of their equipment base and sort of visualizing all that data coming in, now they look at that and they offer it to their customers, their end users, and they're like, wow, this is even better than what I'm getting from the top end OEMs who are actually trying to develop in this space, right? So those are all things where, when for us at Envision, we're applying this technology across so many different domains and so many different asset classes where we can leverage the development cost and the sort of the technology costs across that. Whereas if you're just trying to sort of automate or connect just your own devices, there's a lot of investment that goes into that you're probably not going to be able to justify, right? To build all that infrastructure just for one device class.
Gotcha. Awesome, thanks. So I'll note now, just take a pause before our next point here and just mention to attendees again, for any Q&A and questions you'd like to have answered from any of the panelists, just feel free to go ahead and type in the chat function below, and we'll respond to your questions in that form. All right, so next, Billy, we'll come back to you on this one. We'll snake around, and we'll have this next question is focused around what does predictive look like in your organization, and perhaps having you give an example of either a solution or processing implemented that sort of speaks to that.
Sure. Thanks. So I've been involved in the Field Service US organization for a number of years. I've been a service executive leading large services teams, and this predictive has sort of always been sort of the holy grail, right? Everybody wants to get there. What I find is that a lot of people will offer up predictive, and really all it is when you peel it back and look at it is you're over servicing, you're over maintaining, right? And that's their version of predictive. And where our point of view around predictive is really around how do you capture the correct information, and then how can you use the correct information to generate and to use the AI capabilities to be able to truly do predictive maintenance, and then also sort of bundling those service events so that the ultimate goal of predictive is to reduce the number of service incidents, right? And then to reduce the downtime you have due to service. So that's how we're trying to approach sort of this whole predictive. And along the lines of, I think one of the colleagues here said earlier, right? Some of the devices don't have all the information. So we're also able to provide sort of edge devices and different smart connected sensors into the solutions so that we can actually capture the information that we need. Because for our predictive, it kind of all starts back to sort of the service technician mentality and their training. Because not only are we when we engage a client, not only are we looking at here, show me your machine data, but we're also requesting, hey, can you give me your service reports? I want to see what your technicians are writing. I want to see what your technicians are putting down. And I want to talk to some of your most well-trained and most senior technicians, because I want to know what they're thinking and how they're triaging so that I can then train our AI engine to do the same, right? And then that way we can have the AI engine sort of almost mimic how a senior technician or a senior technician would sort of look at the situation. Because when you talk to these technicians, they all know, hey, this unit, I'm probably going to be back here next September because it's going to break again, or something's wrong, or something's not right. And I remember, many route rides with these guys. Some guys will go into a room and they can almost smell the problem, right? So it's like, how do you take that sixth sense of a technician and build it back into the solution? And that's what we're trying to do.
Oh, well said, Billy. I like that. Vikram.
Yeah, thanks. I'll piggyback on Billy's sixth sense. I really like that term. So I think we do both asset-centric maintenance and work, but I'll spend some time because I think other folks are also on the asset side. I'll give some examples from, I think, the work side. on the services side. So we're working with a leading EPC company, and what we do with what we are working with them to is figuring out like a use case around task duration, right? And some of the challenges you have with managing or optimizing task duration is the data can be very messy, as you guys know. The task duration is bound by a lot of variables, as an example. So what is the baseline task duration for different types of work, and what are the different variables that go into improving the task duration? So that is something that we've taken up in our R&D labs, and we come up with a particular, again, set of algorithms and approach, and we're working with some of our client companies to see if this can be applied. Now, the interesting thing is, again, I go back to the data history. Do we have enough data? Do we have enough quality of data for a specific technician? There is a required amount of history, and we're talking about contractors. You can have variability, right? So, but again, that's the hard part, because if you improve the productivity by 10 percentage points, you have that improvement of savings and from a labor rates perspective. So that's one example. Then we look at task compliance, a lot around task-centric analytics. That's been our sweet spot, because as Billy mentioned, there's a fair amount of maturity, in my opinion, on the asset side, right? On the asset side, we do some of that, but we've been trying to focus on some of the task duration and task compliance, SLA compliance related metrics. So I hope, yeah. So that's some of the work we're focusing on from a work management perspective.
Thanks, Vikram. Harun?
Yeah, I mean, digital transformation or analytics maturity, we know it's a journey, right? So in any typical company, the journey starts from descriptive analytics to diagnostic analytics, predictive and prescriptive. I'm not going to say that we have 100% implemented predictive, because it's one of those things that as we collect more data, it gets better. But the ultimate goal is not only to do predictive, but based on the data that we have in real time, to send prescriptive recommendation to our field service technician as to what they should be doing. For example, one of the example we have on our industrial automation production mail machine, we model the number of times the machine stops, why it stops in real time, and basically based on the historic information we have on the service, parts history, parts usages, etc., we create preventive maintenance with a spare parts kit, ready spare parts kit, and then recommend based on the equipment error profile, age of the machine, and other variables. We recommend these are the things that we recommend you to do in your preventive maintenance, which is by the way, it's not next month, which we determine the time interval based on the condition of the machine. But there's a lot more to do there. We are not nearly where we need to be, but we are making progress in the journey from going from descriptive to diagnostic to predictive and ultimately prescriptive in real time.
Descriptive in real time. I like that too. Thanks, Harun. And Jatin.
Yeah, no, this is a huge area for us. This is where we see spending a lot of our future time on. With what we have built so far, the infrastructure, device connectivity data, and of our service history so far, we have what we call preventative maintenance. Since I'm in a regulated industry, we have a cycle-based preventative maintenance. After every so many cycles, we have to do a preventative maintenance on our high gear equipment, basically to calibrate it, bring it back to specs, and make sure it's medical compliance spec range. One of the things we've been doing is typically these things were cycle-based, either number of days or number of images, if you may. After every 15,000 images, kind of similar to your car. After so many miles, you do an oil change. What we are learning now is that we do have to do that minimal required preventative maintenance. But as we get more data and continuous data from our devices, what additionally we can do from that point based on, for that particular machine, not just from general averages, for that particular machine, do we see wear and tear components? Do we see certain components getting beyond a certain threshold. So while we are there, spending a few hours, and more importantly, not just an aspect of service cost, because obviously I optimize on travel and service, but that's for our company. But more importantly, from the customer's perspective, they already have scheduled downtime for preventative maintenance. Can we use that same window to ensure where we are? Can we do other replacements? Can we make sure that other components that may be potential for impeding failure in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, let's do proactively that while we are doing the PM calls. Now, I could have done this without insight and analytics and just gone and replaced everything. But I think to Billy's point, right? You don't want to over-service. I don't want to throw parts at a problem. So where we have started using our insights, more importantly, to be a little bit more prescriptive on what are the components, and then we fine tune and only replace what is minimally needed. So not only do we save costs, but more importantly, we save and optimize the uptime for our customers.
Awesome. Yeah, another one, the optimize uptime of the equipment, technician performance, and seems all of you kind of have had instances where you've done
it's 3 or 4 major problems we all in service are trying to solve. So we continue to chip away at that.
That's right. Okay, so we have time for our sort of final question and wrap up here. Jatin, will come back to you on this one. And it is, what are sort of the lessons learned and hurdles you've come across, and how do you institutionalize the process of the solution?
A couple of things I'll say. One is that some of the lessons learned, and I said, we are in the middle of our journey, right? We've made some good progresses, but we have a lot more to go. One is recognize that this is a journey. It is going to be multiple steps. So start with some use cases, deploy them. But, many of our companies have years and years and years of transactional service data. We know our equipment. We know the service histories. We know the customer usage. What is relatively new over the last X years is now we are combining them with actual device data, the alerts, mechanisms, triggers, logs coming from our devices. There's a lot of data there. It can feel overwhelming. I'll give you an example. When we started doing one of the things is what we call drop alerts. If one of our critical components is dropped beyond a certain threshold, XG, we get an alert because then we need to recalibrate that equipment. But there was a lot of noise. Every time I get an alert, it's 6 times a day. And 95% of the time, we don't need to do anything. So there's a lot of data that's going to be coming. So make sure you ensure that you start with small use cases, weed out the noise, fine-tune your analysis, and make sure you focus on deliverable business outcomes, because it can get a little overwhelming and you try to analyze all the data. You'll have hundreds of noise signal combinations. So try to pick 1 or 2 that actually lead to an outcome, whether it be productivity or improving a customer outcome. And that's how you start. And continue to build on your use cases.
Excellent. Thanks, Jatin. Arun, how about you?
Yeah, I know we're short on time, so I'll keep it quick. 3 things. First one is definitely leadership. Leadership commitment is number 1. It is important so that, for the investments, for setting up the right mindset. The second thing is, as I talked earlier, understand what your goal is. What is that you're trying to do with the analytics? And then try to collect that data and then go about measuring that data, collecting more data, cleansing, modeling, et cetera, et cetera. The third thing, very important thing, is start small and build it from there. We do not continuously want to do pilots, especially with using new technologies. Starting small allows us to move faster and be successful, and success breeds success, especially when you're talking about technicians. When they see that, okay, you're doing something with remote monitoring that saves them, let's say, an hour of troubleshooting time, less travel and more insight so that they can do their job better, they get into the bandwagon, and then you create an environment, create a culture of success. So it's important to start small and win in that small project, and then communicate success.
Vikram?
Yeah, I'll add incrementally. I don't want to I think the co-panelists have covered a lot of good information. For me, I think the main lesson learned is what I'm thinking of as agile AI, aka platform AI. How we can build an ecosystem where folks can experiment and see the results of their experimentation in regular business transaction processes. Because what I've seen, the lesson is that we do solve problems, but then the hard question of where is that being applied? What is the value? How does that manifest in your business process is sometimes not always thought through. So the ability to quickly build it and meld it into your core business process, I think is something that is a perspective that we as a company are bringing to the table, and I personally believe. So I'll leave it there.
And Billy, final thoughts.
Yeah. Great discussion here. And again, I think the things that I see is that people sometimes get intimidated, right? They think that, my product's not sophisticated enough, or, this is going to cost too much money, or this is too complex, or, my service team is very simple, and, we don't need this much sophistication. And all I would say is that, you can't afford not to do this, because I think a lot of times what you're going to see is that it does not cost as much as you think. You're going to get the value that you're going to get out of it is going to be far greater than what you're going to be putting into it. And then there's a lot of people out there that can sort of make it more simplified for you, so that you're not having to deal with all the complexities around it, because there's a lot of people that can do that for you as a service, and allowing you to stay focused on your key business and your key services. So reach out and talk to some people, and your chances are you're going to find that you're going to be able to embark on this journey just like everybody else in your industry.
Awesome. Thanks, Billy. Well, that wraps up the sessions for today. To all of you who've tuned in, thank you so much. You heard it from the experts here. You don't start small, and you don't have to go at it alone. So network, meet with people, and hopefully you're doing that during the event this time. And I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us and sharing the insights. It was a great discussion. Hopefully everyone got a few good nuggets to take back and implement. And we'll see you in the comments section, the Q&A section below to answer any questions. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the event.